Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetzky, Andy Kamenetzky. As the Lakers try to get ready for the offseason, the NBA keeps throwing curveballs. That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter where you get your podcast, this one's always going to be free, never behind a paywall. And of course, Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 35,000 subscribers, Andy, are all hanging out, leaving questions, leaving comments. We're going to use some of them today on the show, answering some listener/viewer questions. But they're all wondering exactly how the Lakers are going to attack this offseason. And in that regard, you know, we really spent most of Tuesday's show talking about the impact of the shocking results of the draft lottery on potentially what the Lakers do this offseason, what happens in the Western Conference this offseason. Cooper Flagg going to Dallas, the Spurs jumping up to number 2, putting them in a prime position to make a move, whether for Giannis or someone else. The other part of that, and the news came down officially on Tuesday afternoon, and it's terrible news really across the NBA. If you're a basketball fan, Jayson Tatum, who got hurt in Monday night's game 5 against the Knicks, game 5, game 4, I believe.
Yes, the Knicks. Because the Celtics are down 3-1 in this series right now.
The math is hard for me. He gets hurt with about 2.5 minutes left in that game. And already by Tuesday afternoon, he gets hurt on Monday night. By Tuesday afternoon, he's already had surgery. So he is out for the foreseeable future. And the Celtics now are one of these teams that are hard to predict, and how they handle their offseason could be one of these things that has a ripple effect throughout the league and changes how the Lakers are able to go about doing their business, because Boston, Andy, had some real big choices they were going to have to make no matter what happened with this season.
To reiterate what you were saying before, this really sucks with Jayson Tatum. Like, I don't care how much you love the Lakers. I don't care that Jayson Tatum is thus far a Celtics lifer. Like, you are an a-hole if you're happy about this, just straight up. It's awful to see with, one of the best young players in the league who also seems like he's a pretty good dude on top of it. But like you said, this can potentially change the landscape of the league in the immediate future, but also maybe over the next couple seasons. First of all, the Eastern Conference playoffs were already really wide open, with Boston falling behind the Knicks regardless. But if the Celtics end up getting eliminated by the Knicks, as it seems like it's going to happen, then things truly seem very wide open for that side of the bracket, because the general consensus was by the prognosticators heading into the playoffs that Boston was going to get back to the finals.
Oh, it was Boston and Cleveland. Like, it was Boston and Cleveland were basically inserted into the Eastern Conference Finals before it started, and both of those teams are on the verge of losing.
Right. And then you get to the questions, like you said, that Boston was going to be facing, even if they repeated, but certainly if they didn't. They have an extraordinarily high payroll. I heard Bill Simmons on Zach Lowe's podcast talking about this situation with the Celtics and Tatum's injury, and he noted that the starting lineup for the Celtics is $188 million between those 5, like just those 5. Mm-hmm. And you start thinking about, okay, obviously they're not going to be looking to move Jayson Tatum now or anything like that. Like, you hope for a recovery, you get him the space to do it. Next season is going to be interesting for the Celtics on a lot of levels, but nonetheless, Jayson Tatum, including a player option for $71 million in his final season, he is owed $303 million between now and 2030. Jaylen Brown, between now and 2029, $235 million. Then you start getting into Derek White, owed $124 million through 2029. Kristaps Porzingis is an expiring contract just under $31 million. Drew Holiday is, I believe, $116 million through 2028. Hell, even Sam Hauser is owed $45 million through 2029, which in and of itself doesn't feel outrageous, but
No.
when you put it on top of all,
it's just a lot. Yeah.
When you put it on top of all of this stuff for a team that is now really in flux, like at best, you could hope for Jayson Tatum to be back after the All-Star break. Like that's the most rosy prognosis. And that's not even counting the time that it's going to take for him to really start looking like Jayson Tatum again. So that means the Celtics could be even more aggressive in what people were expecting in terms of selling off a few of their parts, also in light of the sale of the team impending.
Right. I mean, so like it puts them in a situation. I don't know. I don't know what Boston's going to do. And like, obviously Lakers fans are not rooting for them, but if you're going to go into next season at a distinct disadvantage where maybe you can't really bring back Porzingis, you may not be able to fill that hole right away. But like, they played a lot of games without Kristaps Porzingis and been quite competitive. If they'd repeated or something like that, which it looked like they were on a path to be able to potentially do, maybe you hold on to things a little bit longer. But now you have a situation where not only are you unlikely to repeat, you're going to play next season, guaranteed a healthy chunk of it without Jayson Tatum. Do you as an organization say, you know what, we've still got a lot of good stuff that we can do over time? Tatum ought to be able to, like the Achilles injuries are very different now than they were even 10 years ago, 15
still potentially devastating. I mean, they're serious injuries.
But they are, where they used to be career enders.
Right.
I mean, I don't think anybody even remembers that KD had an Achilles injury.
I wouldn't go that far, but
like
sure, I understand what
you understand what I'm getting at. Like, he doesn't look a lot worse for those things. And so, guys, the way that these injuries are repaired is different. The timeline it's all different. But with
Tatum is young and like unlike a lot of other guys who've suffered Achilles tears, like the most high profile guys, Kobe, Klay Thompson, who was also dealing with an ACL on top of like Jason Kidd back in the day. Like Jayson Tatum is, I believe, now 27, so he is considerably
much younger.
That matter too. So considerably younger than a lot of these guys.
So the Celtics. The question isn't whether or not, like, you have every reason to believe that Tatum's going to come back and he's going to be just fine over the long term. But next year, do you take advantage of maybe this kind of could be an off year anyway, and get this reset done faster, build up some assets, unload some contracts that could be more onerous going down the road? I love Drew Holiday, but like he'd be a great example of that. If they do, then the Celtics become a team that suddenly is a player in different ways than people expected in the offseason. That impacts the market. Now you add them to San Antonio, you add them to whatever Dallas does to recreate themselves around a Cooper Flag, Anthony Davis, eventually Kyrie Irving core. Meanwhile, too, now if you're another Eastern Conference team that thinks you have maybe an opening, you are hyper aggressive in the market because Cleveland, even if Cleveland comes back and does the same thing they did next year, cross your fingers you don't get the injuries. This year has shown all you need is one injury to happen. Suddenly, if you're the third best team in the conference, you're maybe the first best team. And so teams in the East can afford to try to be incredibly aggressive to take advantage of. Sixers are still going to be incredibly problematic next year. And a team like Indiana, who now has a chance to at least make the Eastern Conference Finals, any question that somebody like Miles Turner might end up available every time, every good game that the Pacers play, and they're playing game 5 as we're sitting down to record, and it's a tight game at halftime. But let's just assume that they beat the Cavs to finish off that series. Or quite honestly, even if they don't, the Pacers have shown enough. I think that they're going to the hope that somebody like Miles Turner would be available is
that was already that ship sailed a couple seasons ago. Lord
I happen
knows,
to agree with you.
I did my best to dock it. I tried really hard to dock it in El Segundo, or at least in the South Bay, where you're alongside water. Nobody listened to me.
a short ride to Marina.
Nobody listened to me, but I did my best. Although it would be interesting if the Pacers knock out the Cavs, maybe Jared Allen becomes available.
You're right, but I think the Cavs probably run it back and just hope nobody gets hurt again next year. But the point of all this is the landscape around the Lakers, who are going to need to be aggressive to try to improve, is shifting dramatically day to day. And it also illustrates one more thing that I know is a principle that you have long argued. And I think you're exactly right about it as it relates to this summer. And I will tell you why and how you're right, Andy, next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Wayfair. The days are getting longer. The weather's warming up. People are spending more time outside, which means it is the perfect time to refresh your outdoor space. And whether you're working with a big backyard or a small balcony, Wayfair has everything you need to make it feel more like you. Wayfair's massive selection of outdoor essentials make it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup, from comfy conversation sets to sleek dining tables, outdoor decor. They've got it all, and at prices that fit your budget. And I love the mix of styles that they offer. Wayfair makes it super easy to find pieces that match your vibe. You want it to feel like your space. When people come over, they know this is you. But you don't have to spend a fortune in the process, especially since delivery is free and also hassle-free, even for the big stuff. Shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online. This summer, get outside with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
So that probably, I'm guessing, was one of your favorite teases that we've had on the show going into a break in a while.
Yeah, I'm really excited to find out what I'm right about.
Why Andy is smart next.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about. Go on.
Most people don't.
Come on, dazzle me, baby. Dazzle me.
One of the things that you often say.
Celebrate me.
Regale
me with tales of me.
Andy Palooza.
Yeah.
One of the things that you often say, and I think you're right.
Say so many things.
Is that you can't count on your window, or the opportunity will be there next year. The opportunity will be there. So if I'm Oklahoma City, I can reasonably think that if I don't do stupid things, we ought to be pretty good for a little while. But you don't know. And windows open and they shut so much faster than teams expect. The opportunity is the one that you have in front of you. And while the Lakers have, hard things that they have to figure out around LeBron, around Austin Reeves, with Luka, whatever, the point is they still have a very good second best player in LeBron. You've got a top 5 player in the league in Luka Doncic, and the opportunity to figure out how to take that pairing and add Reeves, take away Reeves, whatever, put it in position to win. And some people might say, you know what, maybe you take it easy next year. You hope that, the year following, got all this cap space flexibility, whatever. You can do that. But then, Luka does get a little bit older. You don't know what the league looks like. Things happen. I don't think the Lakers should do crazy future mortgaging things, but I do think they can't count on, well, we'll just build something around Luka, and if it takes a couple of years, so be it. I think they got to be aggressive and try to compete next year.
Well, first of all, they're not going to want to do that just because they don't have Luka inked for the future yet. And while everybody is expecting Luka to sign some form of extension to his liking, the Lakers are going to make it very clear pick whatever CBA legal option you'd like. That's the one we're going to.
You know what? Even if it's not totally legal, leave that. We'll smooth it out. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, just ask Joe Smith and the Wolves how that
we'll
goes.
Slip Adam Silver a sawbuck. It'll be fine.
I mean, there are a lot of people right now who feel like the league is fungible that way after the Mavs got the number 1 pick on the. And we don't have to get into all that again, but a lot of people probably think you give Adam Silver the right handshake and maybe
that is.
But
I've never touched an envelope so cold.
It is important for the Lakers, I think, to make sure that they are giving Luka the impression of what things are going to look like if he commits to them.
Mm-hmm.
And, they shouldn't make stupid moves to impress Luka or reckless moves if for no other reason than that might not even impress Luka. And then you're stuck with your reckless, stupid move.
I don't know who Russell Westbrook is for this offseason, but don't trade for him.
Right, exactly. And I do think the Lakers need to consider whatever they do this offseason, because they potentially do stand to have a lot more flexibility and optionality to build a team that they really do like around Luka in the following offseason. So I do think they have to consider, like, if they trade for Nick Claxton, for example, just because he comes up a lot with the Lakers, he's under contract for a few more seasons. It's, I think, a pretty reasonable deal, but they need to consider, like, do we like the idea of Nick Claxton for a few years? Is Nick Claxton worth sacrificing some degree of optionality? Like,
whatever it is that you've got.
Yeah. Right. These are things that they do have to consider, but the idea of simply hoarding it and kicking the can down the road as like your first motive, I agree with you. That's a bad idea. It's also worth noting when you talked about the aggressiveness that other teams around the league may start operating this offseason, given Boston's situation and who might become pliable for that roster. That's only going to ratchet up things for the Lakers, not just because they're going to have to keep up with the Joneses, but also because unless the Lakers are offering one hell of a deal to Boston, all of these fungible players, or many of them at least, I don't know if Boston's going to trade them to the Lakers.
Well, yeah, it's funny. Like, I'm not sure who I mean, there are players, that actually, particularly in their supporting cast, but those. I
would love a crack at Derek White. I would be surprised if Boston would do that. I'm just saying they're going to have to look. They're going to have to look in other directions, as some teams may be more able to deal with Boston than the Lakers.
I think that's true too. The Lakers still have limited assets and all these other things, but this is also where creativity comes into play, because it's not necessarily, the Celtics are go trade for the players on Boston. It's, this team is going to be trying to, like, what really smart teams often do, we see examples of this year to year, where teams, particularly teams that maybe don't have certain assets or whatever it is, like, can you glom on and be the third team in a deal that allows, A and B to do something maybe bigger than what you're doing, but allows you as the Lakers to, at a relatively low cost, pick up a useful player. Take
years ago, the Lakers did that when they brought in Jeremy Lin. They got a pick attached to Jeremy Lin, stuff like that.
Stuff that the opportunity for the Lakers to be creative. Like, this is what we were talking about. Like, when we say, like, I don't want to discount the work of acquiring Luka Doncic in the same way that I don't think it's fair to discount the work of acquiring Anthony Davis. And, the Lakers won a title. So, like, that trade has worked out for the Lakers. They have a title and all that, but those weren't the most complicated things in the world. The hardest part about the Luka deal was just keeping it quiet. Which, okay. I mean, like,
Rob gets credit for it. That goes on his ledger rightly. It's
permanent record.
No, it should. I mean,
it should.
But that's not creative. That's not what you're talking about.
Right. And so it's not hard. It's not complicated. It doesn't show skill
There's no
levels.
expansiveness involved with it. You just
Correct.
have to land that particular plane. And again, Rob deserves the credit for landing that
for
plane.
landing the plane. So what comes next, though? Finding ways to improve the team, to leverage, just using an example, Rui's expiring contract in a way that improves the team, but also doesn't leave a hole. Because you know what? Rui's a pretty good player last year and actually was one of the only guys you could look at and say, for his role, actually did all right in the playoffs too. It's like, he wasn't the problem.
Nope.
So if you trade Rui, you got to figure out, okay, we just gave up an effective front court scorer who shot the lights out and looks like a legitimate 3-point shooter who would, is a great spacer around Luka. You got to replace that. Criticisms of Austin Reeves aside, he still was 25, 6-5 or 5-6 or whatever it was. Like that's 12 guys in the league did that. You got to replace that. So it's not easy and you don't have a lot of assets to do it. So the hard part for Pelinka is what comes next. And I do think ultimately the more activity that there is around the league, and this is something Rob anticipated, says there's going to be a busy offseason. It's probably only going to be busier now. The more activity there is, the better it is for the Lakers. That's my initial read on it. You can tell me if you disagree, but that's my read. If there's more stuff going on, there's more opportunities for Pelinka to do something that helps the team.
Absolutely. It's always easier to get stuff done, or relatively easier, when there's action versus no action.
We got a couple interesting questions about LeBron James in the mailbag, and that is where we will start next. But not before I tell you that today's episode is brought to you by CarGurus. Shopping for a car, it should not be exhausting. It should not be wildly stressful. But whether you're thinking about really, trying to figure out confusing prices, hidden fees, it can be completely overwhelming. I have used CarGurus. The last time I bought a car, it helped me navigate through all the pricing issues and figure out where the best deal was, so that when I showed up at the dealership, which I eventually did, that I was getting a good deal and I was going to pay what the deal was. It wasn't going to be, some sort of bait and switch. And with over 4 million listings, CarGurus has more new and used cars than any other major online marketplace in the US. They verify dealers, provide real pricing analysis, and give you the tools and data that you need to make the right choice without second guessing yourself. It's no wonder that SimilarWeb estimated traffic data shows that CarGurus is the #1 most visited car shopping site. You get visibility, you get consistency, exactly what it is when you show up at the dealership. Takes all the stress out of buying a car. So buy or sell your next car today with CarGurus at CarGurus.com. Go to CarGurus.com to make sure your big deal is the best deal. That's CarGurus, CarGurus.com. CarGurus.com. When we open up the mailbag, there were a couple really interesting questions in there, and they were related to LeBron. And one of them is related to the conversation that we were just having about what are you doing this offseason and this and that and the other. It comes from Ruel B, at Ruel B, this from the YouTube page. Is there a chance that LeBron doesn't pick up his player option and decides to walk away and sign with a contender like the Cavs or Golden State in the offseason? By the way, low-key admission that he's saying that the Lakers are not a contender. If he does that, what are the chances of LeBron doing something like that? I'll let you. I have my thoughts, but you go first, Andy.
There's always a chance. I would be pretty shocked if it happened. I would be particularly shocked if LeBron did it in a move to the Warriors, because he already had an opportunity to do that and chose not to. And I don't even know if the Warriors offer him that much more opportunity for a championship than the situation that he's in right now. And I also don't know how wild he would be about truly joining another team's well-established culture with Steph, as much as they have like a true respect for each other. Again, if he wanted to do this, I think he would have done it by now. Maybe if he wanted to go to Cleveland to end his career there, I suppose it's possible, but he'd have to be willing to take a massive, massive discount to do that
in both places. You're
right,
basically he's signing for exception money in both places. If
right, I'm ruling out Golden State altogether. I would be really, really surprised if he did that.
Yeah.
If he wanted to do that or was willing to do that for Cleveland, I would then just ask, why not do it for the Lakers and, help out your current situation more? Like, to be clear, I don't think LeBron is in any way obligated to do it for either team at all. I've said this before, as much as in a capped league, if LeBron truly wants to give Rob Pelinka the most optionality to put the most pieces around him or the best possible, it is required to take that steep of a haircut. I just don't think he is in any way obligated to at all. But if he's going to do that for the Cavs, I don't know why he wouldn't do that here.
And he's not going to, if he's not going to do it for the Lakers, taking a $20 million haircut and sign for 30, he's not going to take an exception somewhere again, unless he just says, if that happens, and I agree with you, I don't think it will become with an announcement, this is my last year.
Right.
I want to finish it in Cleveland.
I
do think there's a reasonable chance that he does play one more year in Cleveland before he's done, which actually I wouldn't bet on it, but I don't think it's a non-zero chance that he
I would agree
spends at least one more year in Cleveland, which leads to the next question, and this comes from Ari Marsh. For a question for the K brothers and all longtime fans and historians, where does LeBron rank among Laker greats? Let's say, Andy, that he did decide to leave and the LeBron thing ended next year or even in a couple years. Where does LeBron rank among Laker greats based on his legacy or non-legacy in LA? Is he even considered a Laker great? And he gives his list: Magic, Kobe, Kareem, then Jerry West, then guys like Shaq, Worthy, Cooper, Gasol. He even puts role players like Fisher and Ori ahead of LeBron. Without arguing necessarily his list, looking at the big question, where does LeBron for you rank among Laker greats? Because it's a different question than where are you in an all-time NBA group.
Right. And this is something I've talked about a lot, where the Lakers have such an insanely rich history of success and great players. Ari had listed, you forgot in reading his piece, he also included Wilt. And that's also before you get to a guy like Gail Goodrich or, they've had so many just incredible players with this team. And obviously there's no definitive right way to do this. But what I think is really interesting is just LeBron is this very unusual case in that he was really well established and decorated and basically a made guy before he joined the Lakers. So his identity has never really changed in any significant way by being a Laker. Or, the most immediate comp I could think of is Wilt, but at this point, LeBron, assuming he is with the Lakers next year, it's going to be 8 years with the Lakers, which, side note, and I just learned this, and it's kind of crazy.
Mind-blowing, yeah.
This will be, assuming LeBron is back next year, 8 seasons with the Lakers, the longest consecutive run he's had with any franchise.
Yep.
Which is kind of crazy because I think the Lakers are going to be the franchise he's least automatically associated with, over time. But nonetheless, it's the longest consecutive period he's ever spent with a team. And, he and Wilt were both one title guys, at least LeBron so far with the Lakers. But LeBron was the focal point of that championship team. He was the finals MVP. He averaged just shy of 30 points and a near triple-double versus Miami, whereas Wilt was the third leading scorer on that team. He did average 23 rebounds a game. So he wasn't exactly just along for the ride.
But he wasn't loafing.
Right. But, LeBron has been here longer, did more in a title. So I feel like, in all honesty, he should be above Wilt, but Wilt feels the closest. And LeBron's time also here didn't really do much, I think, to elevate his legacy other than just unprecedented longevity. But that theoretically happens regardless of where LeBron plays. And even the records that he set as a Laker, they feel like it's great. It's awesome that he set them in a Laker uniform, but they feel like they would have been set anywhere,
right?
Assuming
as long as he was playing, he would have set those records.
And even then, I was thinking about some of these other ones, or other achievements. When he passed, say, Kobe on the all-time scoring list, that was a really cool moment. It happened in Philadelphia, which is just perfect considering it's where Kobe grew up, and Kobe was really gracious about it. He called LeBron. LeBron saved that voicemail. Everyone on the team plane had been talking about it. And then almost immediately afterwards, Kobe dies in the helicopter crash. So the aftermath, and I think the way people even think about that moment, it's unfortunately connected to a tragedy. So it's you don't even really get to relish in the idea of Laker passing Laker, icon passing icon, because there's so much sadness attached to it. And then the championship, the 2020 championship, it's in the bubble. And I don't mean that there's an asterisk. It counts just as much as the others. It was a difficult achievement like any championship, but we've heard from enough Laker fans to know they don't feel the same attachment to it because it was so far away. So LeBron's time as a Laker, I've said this many times, I still think it's accurate. The word I always use to describe it is weird. Mm-hmm. And I think this is just another example of the weirdness attached to it. It's hard to peg.
You're getting at
lands in all this.
You're getting at my big question about this. There's one test, to be an all-time Laker great. At the very least, there's one test that you have to be able to pass in order to be on that list. And keep in mind, I say this as saying that LeBron James is the best player to ever play basketball, professional basketball. I think he's better. I think he's better than Jordan. I think he's better than Kareem in the NBA and all that stuff. When you close your eyes and you picture LeBron James, just LeBron James, picture him in a uniform. What percentage of people are going to pick the Lakers and picture him in a Lakers uniform, other than 9-year-olds who have never seen him play anywhere else? Anybody who's 25 and older who's been a basketball fan for most of their lives. If I'm a 13-year-old kid, 10-year-old kid, and I start watching basketball, and now I'm 30, and I picture LeBron James in a uniform, it's not going to be in a Laker uniform.
No,
for most people. And so that to me automatically then puts him behind Magic, Kobe, Kareem. Because Kareem, yes, he played for Milwaukee. Everybody pictures him in a Lakers uniform.
Right.
Jerry West, obviously, Worthy, same kind of thing. Michael Cooper
was a lot.
Same thing. Even somebody like Powell. You can start making the argument. Powell only had one more title, but I think more people think of Pau Gasol as a Laker than think of LeBron James as a Laker. And for a lot of the reasons that you were mentioning there, Shaq, even though he bounced around to 800 different teams and won a title in Miami, probably more associated. If you close your eyes and you think of Shaquille O'Neal, you're thinking of him in a Lakers uniform.
Yeah. And so repeat 4 finals appearances in 5 years. Plus, to be in all honesty, the majority of the drama that happened in Shaq's career, even being
Shaq's most Shaqy years, were with the Lakers.
Yeah.
So that to me is the thing that it just knocks, and they'll probably even still give LeBron a statue when it's all said and done. But it knocks him way down for me on these sort of all-time Lakers greats. Oh, just because all the stuff you listed, and then he, for me, fails in air quotes that test because you want to argue about Ori or Fish or guys like that.
That's where sentimentality.
We can start getting the greatness thing, and we don't necessarily have time. Leave us in the comments what you think about sort of where you put it. But it is an interesting question, and it goes to show the difference between being a great for a specific team versus greatness over the course of your career.
Well, the last thing I was going to say is when Ari mentioned guys like Fisher and Ori, and I think even to a certain degree, someone like Michael Cooper, who they are all great Lakers and all had great success with the Lakers, and they've mattered a lot to the Lakers. And I'm not trying to take any of that away, but those guys if you're putting them ahead of LeBron, a lot of that is on sentimentality, which is totally fine, by the way. It's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
These lists are not official. They're imprecise. They're whatever you want them to be. But what I think is most interesting about that is it is a reminder that I think for the majority of Laker fans that we hear from, and we hear from an awful lot of them for a very long time, they've never been attached to LeBron that way. They may appreciate him. They damn sure should respect him, but they've never been attached to him as a Laker the way that they have been attached to many others.
Because Kareem's greatness as a player, you can people and do argue, Michael Thompson, our friend at 710 ESPN, analyst for the Lakers on the radio broadcasts, argues for Kareem over everybody. Clay's dad, argues for Kareem over everybody, and so people make that. Or most people would consider LeBron's greatness greater than Kareem's. Most people would consider LeBron's greatness greater than Magic's. Nobody would argue, though, that LeBron was greater in a Lakers uniform than either of those guys, or Kobe, or anyone like that. But it's a fascinating argument, and it gets into all kinds of things about what fandom really is. So we appreciate the questions from everyone. Keep them coming over the course of the offseason. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 35,000 subscribers. See everyone tomorrow.